See? Look at that.
Speaking of...
Your reviews are working even after the fact.
There you go, you see.
Just,
I'm always on it. But speaking of great games we want to revisit, for no reason other than they're super duper funsy. What do we got here? We got DragonClash. Oh my god, we're gonna play some DragonClash today, are we?
Yes. Can you see my screen share?
I can see your screen. I've been staring at this logo for a while. I still love this logo so much. It's so badass.
Yeah. Thanks, man. The artist that did it for me, I worked with him when he was actually just starting out, and obviously he's a lot bigger now. But he did a ton of art for the game. I've loved all of it. So yeah, it's got a lot of character in it.
It's proper good. I mean, it gives it such a sense of epicness. These characters, look at them. Look at how mean they all look. None of them have got time for anything. You want to say something? Step up and say your piece, son. Because I'm gonna fucking incinerate you. It just looks so mean. Look at them. I love it.
Well, you know, the silver is. Yes, I guess you're right. You're right. They're badass. What can I say?
They're badass.
I like it. Of course, I'm biased, but.
You're biased, but for good reason. You recognise a quality product when you see it, and that's why you only put out a quality product. So, I guess to kind of give some... I don't know how much of what we've just been talking about is going to make the video, but just to kind of clue people in. A review on the game is coming, I promise, swear, cross my heart, hope to die. However, because I had so much fun talking to Mark on the previous podcast, and because I enjoyed playing the game so much, I wanted an excuse to see how it's played properly, because I keep getting my ass kicked. I think I'm up to 5 consecutive losses in a row.
Oh no!
I want to see how it's done. So we're gonna play a game here. We're gonna watch it. We're gonna watch it unfold. We're gonna see how a master plays the game. And we're gonna get some. Hopefully, we're gonna get some tips along the way. We're gonna see how the game plays when it's been played with someone of skill and panache. And that's why Mark's here. Because Mark's going to show us not only how the game is put together, how the game came to be, and also some of the little tidbits and information that we might have missed in our little discussion and what I might miss in my review, but also we're going to see him throw down. It's going to be fun.
Now you've set me up for a totally epic loss now. You realize that, right?
If you lose, I will edit this video so that you still win. I promise.
Excellent. Well, do you have a favorite dragon? Should we? Do you want me to play as any particular one here, or?
I tried my hand with all 4.
Okay.
However, my preference is your starter, just because I'm a sucker for red. I was a Red Ranger boy when I was young, so.
Okay.
And plus, I like his initial design. His initial design just looks badass as well. And when it referenced melee attacks, I'm a melee guy when it comes to RPG games. Just I'm a brawler type character anyway, so it kind of spoke to me from the perspective of okay, let's just go in claw swinging and see what happens here.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with turning your enemies to ash, right? You know?
Turning them to ash is always a good plan. However, so far I have been humiliated ritually in this game, so turning them to ash is something I'm hoping to learn how to do with a bit more skill here.
Okay, sure. Well, the Red Breather is a good dragon to start with because it's fairly straightforward mechanics-wise, but it does teach you pretty quickly that you need to manage your deck and your essence. Because so many of its attacks are expensive, you can just burn yourself out. You can end up actually killing yourself if you just kind of carelessly wail away. So that's the biggest trick with him. But should I just jump in and kind of?
Let's do it. Yeah, let's take a look and see. Because immediately I'm thinking, oh dear, did I jump in? Did I go too hard, too fast? Because that's certainly something I'm guilty of doing. I'm guilty of trying to overwhelm my opponents a lot of the time by sort of consolidating my abilities and then attacking in one big burst, and sometimes it doesn't work all that well.
Yeah. Well, the other weakness of this particular dragon is it doesn't have a lot of defense. It pretty much starts with 1s and all of its defensive attributes here, but it doesn't really increase much. And so, of all the dragons, it's pretty much attack and try not to burn yourself out and kill your opponent as fast as possible. But not, and then you can't really help but get hit a few times. It does have a few defensive cards like Smoke Aura, which ups its resistance to breath attacks, but for the most part, it's an offensive dragon. So it can be tricky, but it can also be fun. So
It looks
let's see what we got here.
looks like you're up against a fellow.
Yeah, mirror match, of course, in the first game.
That's good. We'll see how the dragons stack up against each other when wielded by opposing players. It will be interesting to see who gets the other upper hand early.
Yes. Now the game does have the 4 dragons you saw as kind of your basic rivals, and then obviously how the scope of the game works is it's kind of similar to a fighting game where you fight like the roster of other dragons, and then you meet a boss, and then you fight another, the roster, and then you meet another boss. So it kind of goes through that cycle. Of, for those wondering how the game progresses, I guess that's probably the best way to describe it. It's kind of like Mortal Kombat, but with cards and dragons.
That sounds so goddamn cool.
So here we got a couple of we have an early attack here, which is Tail Bash, which I can train right away because it requires a discipline of 1. But Tail Bash is one of those tricky attacks I mentioned you have to be careful of, because while it does a ton of damage, it also expends a pretty good amount of cards when you use it. So, and at the beginning you're only regaining 1 a turn. So even if you swing and hit every turn, you're spending 2. So you're spending more than you're regaining at the beginning. So you got to be careful. All right. Looks like Korlak is your rival. He's going to go first. Let's see what he does. All right. So right away he's playing a defensive card. An event. Events last for 10 turns and then they naturally expire. And I can counter them with my own events if I have any, which I currently don't. So that's going to make it a little bit harder. Of course, I said that the Red Breathers don't have a very good defense, and the very first thing he does is play a defensive card because, my own game likes to thwart me. So he's attacking with Claw Attack. I can opt to just use a counter if I want. I have a counter in hand. I'm not going to waste a counter on a low attack, so I'm just going to get hit, but not huge.
It's going to tank the damage for now.
Yeah. I mean, taking 1 a turn is not horrible, and I'd rather save my counters for later in the game. Alright, so with Red Breathers, I usually like to have... Everyone starts with Claw Attack. It's kind of like your normal... It's nice to have a free attack, because at rank 1, it costs nothing to use, so it's always good to have that in the bag. I usually like to have 1 melee and 1 breath attack developed. Since I didn't draw any other melee attacks, I'm going to go ahead and train Tail Bash. If I had Flame Tongue in hand, which is the Red Breather's melee attack, I'd probably hold off and not train Tail Bash at all, just because I don't like to have conflicting attacks trained. Cards you have on your board aren't in your deck, so you want to obviously have the cards in your deck to use for resolving attacks and resolving actions and that kind of thing. So you only want to play what you absolutely need to play. And see, for a second action, I might need to smoke Aura if he ends up going breath attacks, but let's see what he does. So in the meantime, I'm actually going to use this defend. It's got a fairly low battle value, so in terms of risk, if I get feasted on, Feast is a card that wipes out my horde here. I'll only lose a 2 battle value card as opposed to a higher battle value card like 6. Kind of throwing a lot of terms out there, right?
Absolutely fine.
I could probably back up if I don't know how much you think I need to back up for your watchers and kind of give a tutorial.
Nah, if I can follow it, anyone can follow it, so you're fine.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead, since it's if you can see it's the hover here is saying I have a 1 attack versus his 2 defense, essentially, that's what it's saying. So it's pretty strong advantage to him. So I don't want to risk it and then waste the 2 essence. For now, I'm just going to go with lower damage attack, but it's free. So I'm kind of just opting to chip away rather than see, and I missed anyway. Why? Because we both drew 1s, and I added my 1, so I have a total of 2, and he has a total of 3. And if for me to hit, I would have needed to go higher than his total.
Simple math, kids.
Yep. 1 + 1 is 2. Can't avoid it.
So he's taken a hit so far, but he's planning for the future.
Yes.
So would you say with this particular dragon it's important to build up a little bit before going in guns blazing?
Yeah, his strongest attacks are breath attacks. I got a good one right here, Ember Breath. You can actually win the game. Ember Breath is a attack that I actually kind of have on my radar because it might be too good. But I've won the game with it by just training up to rank 2 and having an offensive side card like Double Jaw or something like that, which ups my breath skill. You can win the game with a 3/7 generally, so it's a pretty strong card in general. And as I said, the Red Breather is offensive anyway, so he can kind of, as you train him, his breath attacks starts at 0, but it can go all the way up to 3. So it's he can be a pretty hard dragon to manage if you develop him. And I mentioned before I put the defend card in my horde because I didn't want to risk it potentially getting feasted on, and of course he did just that. The feast card removes the horde from play. And for those new to DragonClash, the horde is how you improve your dragon.
Indeed.
Right now I start as a hatchling, but as you play along, it has like a RPG-lite element to it, where you do progress throughout the match.
And I want to touch on that in more detail once you come to actually leveling up at some stage. So we'll touch on that a little bit more in a minute. But anyway, let's move on.
Yeah, he's got 2 cards in his horde, so it looks like I have no way to stop it. So he's probably going to level up on his turn. You'll be able to see that in action.
What's some of the immediate benefits from leveling up?
Well, in this case, if I level up, it ups your... every time you level up, it ups some of your attributes. So in this case, once I level up, my melee will go up from 1 to 2, and I'll have a little bit more tactics. And the tactics allow you to play stronger attacks. Like I can't play Ember Breath right now because it requires a 2 tactics. So I actually have to level up my dragon before I can play this card. So you can't just vomit all your best attacks on the board from the opening game. You actually have to develop your board state and your dragon. So, all right. Try to balance talking and playing here.
That's absolutely doing great so far.
All right, I see. I have an event now. I could counter. You can only have one event in play on either side of the board. So by playing this card, I would counter this card, which would then open up my attacks a little more. But unfortunately, it would also make me have to discard down to 4. And I'm trying to see if I want to do that now. I guess I could. Why not? It's the bigger slice. So I countered his card. At the end of this turn, I'll have to discard down to 4 cards. Do you want to put something else back in my horde to try to level up? And now that it's a 1-to-1 advantage, because we got rid of Gaia's Breath, I'll go ahead and risk it. It's still a slight advantage to the defender because ties go to the defender.
Way
paid off for me. Yay! Alright, and there you see the events taking effect, so I have to discard 2 cards because I can only have 4 in my hand and I have 6. Now, how you discard cards matters because when you gain essence, it takes the top cards from your discard pile and puts them on the bottom. So the ones on the bottom of your discard pile, you don't want, if they're good cards, you don't want to bury them. And by bury them, I mean like if you have so many cards in your discard pile, you'll never be able to get to them through regaining essence. They're essentially buried. They're essentially eliminated from the game. So you want to be careful of what order you put cards in your discard. In this case, I already have 2 attacks in. I'm probably gonna put a 6 on, and then I'll put, even though I love this attack, I can't use it until I have a 4 tactics, so I'll put that on top with the hope that it gets cycled back into my deck and I'll draw it again later.
So from your weather dice so far, how is the battle progressing in your favor, would you say? I mean, he's just leveled up for a kickoff, so not good.
Oh yeah, so Yeah, I mean he's a little bit ahead, and he's got this Ember Breath, which it's like everything I've been saying it's be good for us to do. He's been doing, so he's kind of I feel like he's listening to me, but yeah. So he's got an Ember Breath attack trained because he leveled up his dragon, and now you'll see he has the 2 tactics. The advantage right now is he only has a 0 breath, so while he can train Ember Breath, he's basically just spitting. He's still too young to actually develop that breath attack. He's just kind of spitting fiery saliva at us. So that flame sack has to be developed. So one interesting tidbit. You asked me what in our original podcast. You asked me things that had changed from the tabletop version to the digital version.
Indeed, yeah.
One interesting tidbit is these ranged attacks and Ember Breath can be used in distant range or close range. They used to be upside down at the early ranks, which means it used to be more expensive to use them than the damage it dealt. Because they're so powerful, because you can use them in multiple ranges, I actually made it so you didn't really want to play at rank 1, but I found once the game was out in the wild, it just wasn't fun not to be able to play your attacks.
100%.
So one of the things that I did was I went back and kind of redesigned the whole essence damage balance in the loop to make it more useful to use all your attacks, right from the get-go. And it's balanced out in other ways, like you can't, even though you can use it now, he only has a 0. So he'd have a slim chance of actually hitting them.
How tricky is it to balance the, again, I suppose, the phrase they're using wrestling is getting your shit in terms of getting the more fun aspects of the game into the gameplay as it unfolds, but also not so much that it ruins the meta game as it plays. So for lack of a better phrase, so you don't start the game and then suddenly there's a card that drops into your hand, it basically wins the game for you. How difficult is that balancing so that it plays out in the way that you want it to in terms of incentivizing leveling up the dragon, building your deck, or also countering various defensive cards along with effects, things like that?
Yeah, it is. It's because you think you have an idea going in. It's basically when you first design the game, it's all math. You just have your numbers, but you don't until you actually play it and see how those numbers actually translate and how it just kind of flows in the overall, how the turns kind of progress and how those numbers translate. You kind of tweak and realize, okay, well, it might make sense mathematically, but in terms of fun. Here's another example. As you level up your dragon, I mentioned your tactics goes up, so you can use your cards, your more advanced attacks sooner. I used to have it so that, for example, your ability went up first, and that just lets you play the attacks you already have. It lets you play more of them essentially. So I could develop Tail Bash from level 1 to level 2. But what I found playing it was that I would have a lot of cards in my hand that I just couldn't play. It would take me longer to play the cool cards that I wanted to play. And I thought, well, rather than, let's just flip it. So instead of developing your existing attacks more, let's make it so you can develop new attacks and then wait on developing, those the more kind of babbling a little bit, but basically, rather than increasing your existing attacks first, let's make it so that you can play your cool cards and then come to that kind of strategic bottleneck where you have to decide which attacks you want to develop further, if that makes any sense.
No, it makes perfect sense, yeah.
It is, yeah. Anyway. So back to it. I'm actually going to finally level up myself here. I'm going to shed skin. I'm choosing to keep Ember Breath, and I'll get this little piddly claw attack back. When you age any attack you have in your discard pile, it takes the most bottom one. So if once I age again, I will have this Ember Breath in my hand, which is good. Then I'll have 2. So now that I aged, I have a 2 melee versus his 1 body. So it's advantage to me. So pressing the attack. while we can.
Wait, now he's in there.
All right, I do have to discard 2 more cards. Let's see, did I? All right, so luckily that Infernal Breath did get cycled back in. I'm going to keep my burst because right now I'm melee and it looks like he's going breath, and I want to definitely keep this. So I'm going to just. I hate to do this because I don't like to have low battle value cards cycling back into my deck, but sometimes you have to. It's giving me the option to burst, but I don't really have any incentive to do that right now, so I'm just going to hold on to it.
So can you tell from this point what his tactics are in terms of how he's trying to attack you and how he's trying to break you down?
Well, he's kind of, I guess, kind of funny because he's kind of doing what I thought our strategy should be. I mentioned that I didn't have any Flame Tongue in my hand. It looks like he either had it or pulled it recently. So he's definitely going to be training. It looks like these are going to be his primary attacks. Short term, I imagine he'll be focusing on Flame Tongue now because his melee is trained, whereas he has to still age to advance his breath tactics. But I wouldn't be surprised if this flip-flops once he ages a little bit, and we're going to be contending with a dragon that's swooping in and out of range and breathing fire on us. So this smoke aura is going to help later in the game because it's going to help us defend against his breath attacks. Right now, we're just kind of slugging it out. It's 2 offensive juggernauts who don't really particularly like to stick and move. They just bash each other. All right, I pulled a feast card, which would be good to slow him down a little bit. I don't like using. You can use it now, but I like maximizing the value of this card. So I don't like using it unless he's got 2 cards in his hand, which means sometimes if he continues to have 1 and ages, you can get into a loop where he never really has 2 in his hand. But that's just me. It's perfectly viable to. It's a tempo swing, essentially.
Yeah, I've tried that tactic a couple of times, and it is tricky to get the balance right because you're right. He could add another card, age up. He could maybe miss another. It's difficult to get the timing right unless you happen to catch him at a loss where he happens to have 2 in his hand. When again, it's going to maximize its effect on the game.
Yeah, exactly. So and it's a tempo swing because he's spending. You get 2 actions a turn, and if you spend 2 actions to put cards in your horde and then you lose them, you have to respend those 2 actions on your next turn. So exactly. It slows you down. So I like to maximize my tempo. So yeah, I'm going to hold off on that. Now I'm going to go ahead and train my Ember Breath just so I have it out there, knowing that I have another one coming, hopefully. And I kind of want all my cards, but I have to put something in my horde, so... I'm going to stick with my melee attack, and it seems to be working. That's good. Drawing 6s is always good. So when I age again, you'll see that my breath will go up here and also have my ability, which I mentioned before. Your ability dictates how many instances of an attack you can have in play. So right now my ability is a 1, so I can only have 1 Ember Breath card in play. So even if I drew that second one, I wouldn't be able to play it right away until I trained my dragon. Looks like he's pounding away on me as well. It's a pretty close match. You can see generally we have pretty much exactly the same discard. It's been pretty evenly matched. We both have a melee attack, albeit different ones. We both have the same range attack. It could go either way at this point, I'd say. Now thankfully, he chose to hoard a card and not shed his skin. So we now have the opportunity to use our feast card for maximum value, which I'm going to do.
Well, hey.
And you can see we got rid of a 3 battle value card, and he doesn't really need the tail bash now, so that's not really a big loss for him. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and 2 in my so hopefully it's a risk.
It is a risk indeed.
But the fact that he only has 2 cards in hand and one of them is the egg probably means I'm safe. But yeah, probably just jinxed it. And for those new to DragonClash, the whole purpose of the game is to capture your opponent's dragon egg. And you do that by making them just up. Look at that! Oh my god!
Isn't that something?
Oh, of course. He couldn't possibly have another feast card in his hand.
That's a pure Yu-Gi-Oh moment right there. I need this one card, and here it is.
Oh my god! All right, well.
It's all right. It just increases the tempo of the game a little bit. Now there's a bit of clambering as to who can get the edge on who. It's good.
Yeah, it's definitely, especially now we had to discard all those cards because of the Oblivion's Call. It's going to be hard to recover. We have less cards to play with now. Now, I would normally put both of these in, but I mean, he couldn't possibly have another one, could he?
Let's see. Is he gonna gamble or is he gonna play it safe?
Yeah, I want to put it out anyway, so I'm just gonna play it. And that will help. See, now I have a defensive 2, and even if he trains eventually, he'll still have a massive disadvantage. He's gonna probably be sticking on this for a while. This Flame Tongue attack. I will keep whacking him with my tail. Of course I miss.
Starting to see the game pace increase just a little bit here as the metagame plays out a little bit here.
Yeah. I've tried to pick up the pace a little bit, do a little less talking.
Well, I see that the bulk of the battle is now starting to unfold in real time, i.e. the tactics on both sides are really starting to flesh themselves out. The race to try and level up is starting to get a little bit more frantic.
Yeah.
And obviously the hits are starting to come in a bit more frequently on both sides, as opposed to, I think he was missing initially, you were hitting, then you were missing and he was hitting, now you're both hitting each other reasonably frequently.
Yeah, it's we've been trading off pretty well here, and as I said, I mean, it's a mirror match, but we've both been developing slightly differently. So he's got I'd say he has the more efficient attacks at this point, because Flame Tongue is simply cheaper to use, and does a decent amount of damage as well. Tail Bash is a little bit more expensive, does a slightly more damage, but again, at this early on, I'm using more essence than I'm regaining, so it's probably advantage him, especially since he's got less cards in his removed from the game than I do as well. So we'll see how it plays out, but I'd still say we're waiting for that one moment that turns the game. I'm going to go ahead and I am a little ahead on development, which is good. I just trained to Young Serpent, and I got my Ember Breath, so now I can play my second Ember Breath. I can't play it now because I've used all my actions, but next turn I'll be able to start maneuvering more. We've all kind of just been standing toe-to-toe, slugging it out. Starting next turn, I'll be able to start moving, and that will increase the exchange of essence, because it costs essence to move as well.
So as I'm just watching the game play out here, I mean, in terms of the number of games you've played versus how this game is playing out, is this game typical of the kind of AI, the kind of computer adversary that you're likely to face, or is this guy presenting more of a challenge, less of a challenge than they would do normally?
I'd say he's playing about how he should be. He has gotten a lot of, drawing that.
I was going to say, drawing a really favourable card.
Yeah, he's got a couple of happy breaks on his part, but for the most part, and this is one of the things I'm kind of proud of with DragonClash, you're never really out of it. I've had games where I was way ahead, like I had 30 cards in my deck, and he had 6 in his, and I had a few bad turns, and suddenly it was back even again. He was back up to 18 cards, and I was down to 16. So like you can have these massive swings, which can quickly equalize the game state. And on the flip side, especially with boss fights, I found that I've been on the brink of death so many times that, but just pulled it off on that last card. Just dodged that one lethal attack and managed to hit on my return attack. So and then you come away with a victory, and it's that fist pumping moment. So I do find that the games generally, you don't have a runaway. You do have some blowouts, but generally I find that the games are pretty close and pretty tense all the way through. And those little decisions you make at the beginning can definitely add up at the end. So now this is one of those instances where talking and thinking did not sync up properly. I should have moved there. I should have moved there only because I'm probably going to use my breath attack now, and basically by moving, I'm going to be forcing him to move or force him to use inefficient attack. So you can kind of increase the essence loss. Unfortunately, it does cost me essence to move as well, but the theory being my attack is stronger than his, so and it just kind of compounds the damage that I'm doing to him, and he's not able to reciprocate the same amount of damage. But I forgot, so I won't do that. Instead, I'll hoard a card and I'll stay. And now, even though it's a 1-to-1 advantage currently, because I've trained this up to 2, see this new option popped up,
Indeed.
the aimed attack. What that does is it increases all of my offensive attributes by 1 just for this attack, and decreases my rank. So normally I would be attacking here, 3 essence for 7 damage. I could opt to attack here instead, 2 essence for 5 damage, and get that +1. So then I'll have a 2-to-1 advantage. As you can see, didn't matter because he drew a 5. I drew a 2. Sometimes it works, but actually now I'm even happier that I didn't waste that extra essence to try for the bigger attack.
On balance, do you think it's worth the risk to go all out for damage at this early stage, or are you still gauging the situation where you would rather play it safe with the aim and have a better chance of hitting?
It's more about, again, with the Red Breather, his attacks are so expensive. It's more about conserving essence. And
Right.
I'm noticing I have 27 here, and he's got 41, so it's swinging a little bit in his favor. So I'm a little bit leery about using. It's about essence management. So the more I'm trying to maximize my damage potential as cheaply as possible. But if I had a little bit later, once the offensive numbers swing a little bit more to my advantage, it's definitely a little bit. It's probably definitely worth it to be aggressive, especially with the Red Breather, because you don't, as I mentioned, you don't typically have a defensive advantage. So it's really about, especially if you're fighting another Red Breather, it's really about maximizing that output as cheaply as possible, and as quickly as possible, because you are gonna kill yourself otherwise just by spending more essence than you're regaining. Now I did get another potential attack for later. I can't use it yet because it does require 3 tactics, but it is a upgrade over Ember Breath, and that's a fun one to use too. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and move into distant. Okay, so of course he has an answer for it, because why not? He has an answer for everything. So what just happened there is I moved to distant and spent the essence to do it, and then he had this fancy card called Burst, which lets you manipulate range during select range phases. And basically what happened was he's like, nope, we're going to stay toe-to-toe. And as I flew away, he kind of just bursted and jumped back into melee range. So I spent that essence for nothing. At this point, I could age. I think I will age. And I should. I'm going to keep this attack with the 6 back in my deck and hopefully cycle that back in. This claw attack keeps popping back up. Alright, so now that I age and shed my skin of a mature serpent, I have a whopping 2 already. Now this is a case where I could just go all out, because I have the advantage, so it might be more advantageous now to go all out and have that. Or I could really maximize my advantage in terms of offensive versus defensive attributes for a little less damage. I think I'm going to do that just because I'm behind.
There he goes.
Yeah, so luckily that worked well. You see music's picking. I don't know if you can hear the music.
I can
but
hear the
music's
music.
picking up.
Yeah, it's starting. Do you know what? That's such a subtle touch. The way the music ebbs and flows as the battle unfolds. It's such a lovely little touch.
Yeah, it's it's sensing I'm dying horribly, so it's like I have a little motivation.
It's such a critical element of game design that so many developers I come across completely negate. They have something in the background just to fill air, or
Yeah,
they'll pick a song or something, and you just go, "This does not fit the situation in the slightest."
yeah,
Doesn't add
yeah. I
anything
tried
to the
to.
suspense of the game.
Yeah, I think it was funny because when I originally the music and the sound effects tend to come last, and once I started integrating those into the game, it just took it to another level. In my opinion, it just created a whole different atmosphere, really. So,
Well,
yeah, music is definitely important to me.
music helps make memories, man. I don't care if you're young or old. Sometimes there'll be just a tune or something that will send you back to a moment in time. I mean, it's the same with smells, but with gaming, that's kind of something you're not really like. If you smell something and think of a game, that's odd. That's odd.
Yeah,
But yeah, in terms of musical scores, the way that the game feels when you utilize certain actions and mechanics, and it's accompanied with a flourish of some description. It's such a easy way of giving the player a little jolt to say, "Hey, you did it good. Well done, you."
yeah, yeah, for sure. That's what I've tried to do. Just kind of create a few different game states with the atmosphere, so it's not just not just cards, but a little bit of life behind them. So we have a problem here in that he's got 3 developed attacks now, and we only have the 1. So really, no matter what range we're at risk. He's definitely in a strong position. Thankfully, I have this counter to kind of help, hopefully, increase my defensive attributes a little bit. Yeah, so it ended up being a 2-2 after that defend kind of cycled back in, which is good because Ty goes to defender, and we ended up being a 3 versus 3 once you add in our battle value draws. So that defend card saved us from taking 7 more damage, I believe. It's a 5 more. I'm at that point where so here's where I am decision making wise. I can either stay in close range for free, but risk him having a counter. And the Red Breather has a pretty painful counter called Jaw Snap that only works in close range. So I could spend the essence to make sure I'm getting out of that potential counter because I really don't want to take 5 points of damage. But again, he only has 2 cards, so what are the chances, right? We'll see. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and shed skin because I'm trying to stay well ahead. I'm well ahead now, development-wise. That's one thing we have the advantage of. He's only at a 3, and we're at a 5 now. And also our chin is bigger, which, you automatically win. If your chin horns are bigger, it's an advantage. All right, so
Design is certainly getting much more menacing as we go.
Yes. It's all about how you look. You look good, play good. I'm going to go ahead and push it a little bit. We're way behind, essence-wise. I'm feeling the pressure. It's only 1 more essence, but it's 2 more damage. So I'm going to try.
Let's see how it goes.
No, I went horribly, but it went horribly, especially when you draw 1s. Yeah, we're hard up it here now. It's gonna be hard to. I think I'm gonna have to turtle up a little bit and just start resting on my turn.
I was going to say, yeah, it certainly looks to me like a war of attrition is definitely starting to become a more viable option for you. But that's not to say that the situation might not turn at a certain point when the right card presents itself.
Yep, I said you're never totally out of it. Could have might eat my words there a little bit, but yeah. So I have 2 actions. If I don't spend them, I regain 3 essence, and at this point, 3 essence. So I'll be doing that, and I will be doing the aimed attack to miss again because I keep drawing 1s.
Game is not being fair to you at the moment, is it? It's
Oh, this is pretty dire. All right. So, it's funny, even with our smoke aura here, it's just pounding on us. Yeah. So I mentioned which cards you discard is important. This is one of the reasons why. I've drawn 3 1s in a row, and that's because I keep cycling in these low battle value cards. So at the first opportunity, I want to start getting rid of these 5s because right now I need to cycle in as many high battle value cards as I can. Otherwise, we're just toast. Notice how when we're losing it's we, and when we're winning it's us.
We're on this journey together. I'm rooting for you.
There you
I
go. I
want to
appreciate it.
learn how I'm going to win because again, I've been playing the game pretty solidly and just not finding it a viable strategy to win, despite trying a few different options. But it's interesting. It's interesting how that aspect of the game appears to have crept up, as opposed to being something that's immediately apparent at the beginning. So right, okay, when you set off, here's a good strategy to win. That's something that you couldn't have seen coming, is that disparity between where you are now to where you started. And that's great because it also indicates to me that the unpredictability is, well, who knows where the game is going to develop from here. Whereas with other strategy
Yeah.
games that I play, typically you have a balance of probability where if you utilize certain cards and tactics, it's more than likely going to go in a certain direction. Whereas in this, you mentioned that you had a reasonably clear strategy. He followed that. Your cards were not as fair to you as they were to him, and therefore you've had to utilize a completely different strategy to a certain degree.
Yeah, I'd say he's definitely drawn more answers, and that's been problematic. He's got a, um, it is a card game, so there's just some natural variance, in that you just sometimes you're just going to draw better than your opponent. That can be offset by how you play. In this case, I don't think I've made too many mistakes. It's just he's really drawn really well, and he's catching a lot of breaks. He got that feast card when he needed to. He had that burst card when he needed to. He's gotten all of his attacks have been trained pretty high, and now he's got this gift which enhances all of attacks even more. The good thing is he has hurt himself. If we can somehow survive for a little while, he's going to be regaining a lot less essence. So his attrition just went up dramatically. If we can somehow find some defense, we'll see. Now, of course, I needed that 5 before. Now I'll draw the 1. There you go.
Oh no! Damn
Yeah.
it!
So that was a pretty thorough thumping. Um, I guess in retrospect, I could have not played that one only because that counter only because it puts a 1 back in my discard pile to then cycle back in. I mentioned I don't want the 1s to cycle back
Indeed,
in,
yeah.
but I was hoping to just avoid damage altogether. False hope, as it turned out. False hope. But I can show you a little bit of the lair, which is I mentioned some of the long-term progression. Your lair might look a little different than mine. I've had 30 wins with this dragon and now 16 losses, and I've gotten my lair up to level 6 now. So as you progress your dragon, it does have this kind of cosmetic change. So you go back, your layers get more, in this case, more fiery, or it gets, by the end of it gets very explosive. Functionally, I'm looking at possibly making it tied into unlocking future dragon decks if there are content updates in the future, which I'm hopeful there will be. Then to maybe make your lair and your progression in the lair functionally tied to your overall game progression,
Okay.
and the options available too. And I also have these milestone badges, which are another form of it's kind of like Steam achievements, but it's just another little bit of a carrot to kind of give you some goals besides, because at its most basic, it is a card game. You play it repetitively, but I try to create some, whether it be the boss fights, the milestones, the layers, some other incentives, some other carrots for you to kind of work towards, rather than just just hopefully it's fun to play. But besides just that, I don't know. What do you think? Do you want to try again, or do you want to?
Well, I'll tell you
You
what.
had
Let's
enough.
give you another run at the dice to see if we can paper over that first loss. Is there a
Yeah.
particular is there a hatchling that you think you've got a better chance of winning with your style of play, or do you want to take another run at the red breather?
Um. You know what? Let's give the audience a chance to look at a different. I'll pick another dragon, and it'll probably be it'll, it'll probably be another mirror match, knowing our luck. But I'll try the silver chandler. He's another offensive dragon, but he's definitely ranged. He's not melee focused at all.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a very soft body, so you want to stay away as much as possible. But he can be fun because he can just bombard you from distance. So let's give that a shot.
Let's do it.
See what happens. Okay, thankfully we're seeing a different opponent. We're going up against the Brown Mauler, which is actually one of my favorites. Is the Brown Mauler because he's so non-traditional, and from a visual, artistic standpoint, is probably most people's least favorite. But which is probably why I gravitate towards him, because it's kind of like the misfit. And he also loves to eat and nap, so I appreciate that as well. We're off to a better start because we go first, so that's a good thing. Looking at our cards in hand, we don't have any early attacks like we did before. There's no tail bash. The Silver Chandler actually doesn't have a tail bash in his deck, but we do have this lightning strike, which is kind of our mid-level magic attack. So I'll look to develop that first, which means we want to be hoarding cards. And as always, I want to put the low cards in for now. I've drawn a lot of high battle value cards, which is a risk. I guess I'll put this heal in. I prefer not to lose it, but gotta take some risks. Now you can see right off the bat, my melee is a 0. I mentioned that silvers are really poor. Usually every other dragon starts with a 1, so at least your claw attack is equal. He's really horrible. But again, it's free, so it's really a no risk at this point.
Yeah, sure. So how do you think the game is going to play out considering the dragons in the field? Do you think that your one has any specific advantages over his, or does his carry the advantage over both over the long term, do you think?
This is definitely a match of contrasting styles. I mentioned that the Silver Chandler is very bad at melee. Well, we're fighting a Brown Mauler, which his strength is melee. So It's really going to be who's able to use their strength first. Who's really developed that strength first. His other thing is he's got a pretty good defense to start with, and we're starting out. I think the last dragon started out with this too. This Gaia's Breath ups all of his defensive attributes, so that's not a great start for us. Because now, even if we do develop our spell attack, you can see it's a 1 versus 2, where normally it'd be a 1 versus 1. So right away we're on the back claw again. Luckily, it only lasts for now 9 turns, so he's playing it early. And at the beginning, and we also pulled an event of ourselves, so this is good for us too. This will counter his event, and this counters it by upping all of our offensive attributes. So
somewhat of a nullification, which is again hopefully a sign that the game is the cards are going to be a bit kinder to you this round.
Yes, let's hope. I'm going to put the. Normally, I say I don't want to put. You know what? I'll do that. I was gonna keep the heal for later because I'm still smarting from being the beatdown we took last match. But I think that the better strategy would be to put the higher battle value card in, and hopefully it gets cycled into the deck for later. For the second action, now that I've trained my dragon, and the Silver Chandler, I don't know if you've ever seen Neverending Story, but he's inspired by the Luck Dragon from Neverending Story.
It was
your audience watching.
It was a long time ago I watched it. I need to get around to watching a whole bunch of old movies again. I just keep forgetting to sit down and watch movies these days. It's so odd. I think the first movie that I sat down to watch all the way through for the first time was the other day, and it was Hot Fuzz, of all things.
You're going right for the classics. What you're saying.
You know, all you crazy kids out there know what hot fuzz is, right? Right?
They need to put it on. I'm gonna go ahead and be a little bit aggressive now since it's 2-2. So it's a slight advantage to him, but it's only one essence.
Wait, there
In
it
this
is.
case, yeah, it was worth the risk to me. It's a little he's a little bit more essence conservative over the red breather. I had to discard one card. What do we have in here so far? No power. Anything else? All right, I guess I'm going to. These 6s can go in. Hopefully, get cycled back in. So next turn, we're probably going to counter his event and really push the advantage, hopefully for us, now that we have our attack trained. Now, the other advantage for Silver Channelers is they love to draw cards, and this is one of the cards that possibly allow him to do it. It's not guaranteed, but it's worth a shot. Hey, and it worked. Success. So we got 2 extra cards in our hand to play with now. This was the attack that replaces Tail Bash for Silver Channelers. It's kind of their low level, low damage attack. I don't need that and Lightning Strike train generally. It does have this advantage where if you train it enough, you can push away your opponent, which is great for facing something like a Brown Mauler, which wants to just bear hug you to death. But I generally don't want to train too many attacks. I'd rather focus on 2 or 3. So this is pretty much a dead card and a good card to potentially risk. Well, we have a glut of cards in our hand now. So I'll go ahead and put. I'm going to keep trying to. I mentioned before where I could counter his. Because it's still 2-2. I mean, it's a slight advantage to him, but it's not huge. I want to hold on to this. I'd rather just kind of hopefully age faster. And really push that.
Hope the
just take my shot.
Hope the feast card doesn't come up at some point.
He has a pretty good shot now that he's got 7 cards in hand, but it's worth. I mean, it's only a 1 essence attack at this point, so it's worth taking the shot. Well, when he draws 6s, you can't do anything about it. But I still think it was worth a shot, and not necessarily because the danger of playing the Gaea's Wisdom now is if I play that and counter his, he can then counter mine with something else.
Right.
And he does have 7 cards in hand. I really don't want to lose this without. I'd rather use it when I have more incentive to use it, or when I have my attack is either more trained or I have higher damage potential. And there's that feast card.
There's that feast card, of course.
Yep. Luckily, we didn't lose anything too important. And then, feast is gonna happen. Yeah, we draw our own 6, so back at you, buddy. Alright, I'm gonna start playing the range game and kind of move in and out and force him to chase me. I will put a little gun shy, but I'm going to stay aggressive. If he feasts again, we're going to have to turtle up a little bit and play more defensively, but because we're going to be running out of cards.
Let's see what he does.
Okay, he's going to eat. Yep, alright, good. So we survived to age another day, which is good. Unfortunately, he aged as well, but
Indeed, yeah.
as he hasn't the disadvantage of rounds, and why I'm also being so aggressive is they're really slow to develop. Now his attributes are really strong, as you can see, but it took him. He had to age to Young Serpent just to get a 2 tactics. Where normally every other dragon you get your 2 tactics at child's age, which is age 2. So because it takes him longer to get his more advanced attacks out, you can hopefully take advantage of that early and get a little bit ahead of him, because once he it's kind of like a boulder. Once he starts going, he can just roll over you. So you want to kind of take that early game advantage against brown maulers if you can.
You need to press the advantage early, as opposed to the red breather. Then you're saying that this dragon is better utilized on the front foot, trying to gain that advantage as early as possible.
Yeah, when you're when you're going against a brown mauler, you definitely want to press your advantage early, because if you let him get ahead, he can be deadly later on. On the flip side, if you're playing a brown mauler, you do have some initial advantages in terms of your attributes. So if you do end up with a low, one of your lower attacks, like a tail bash, you can probably play that and feel fairly safe hitting with it. But then it becomes a little bit like the red breather situation, where you're doing a little bit of essence management while you're trying to age. All right, now he's bursting to stay in range. I will be shedding skin for one. This double jaw is kind of useless for us. If we were developing our breath attack, which we don't have any of that in hand currently, it'd be worth it. But because the Silver Chandler is more of a spell oriented dragon, it's a of the cards that we could lose, that's probably one of them. Even though it's a 4 battle value attack, it's probably a dead card for us in this circumstance. I'm really hoping to get some more attack cards that we can use. Looks like the other lightning strikes are still somewhere in here, so I'm trying to dig those out. Alright, so discard one. I guess I'll discard one of these defense. Again, I hate putting these lower battle value cards in, but got to make that sacrifice sometimes, because I really would rather, especially since we seem to be progressing pretty well age-wise. These are both good attacks, and this is a great counter, so I'd really rather not lose those. Alright, so our time has to press the advantage has expired a little bit now, because now he's of age where he can start developing his attacks. Crushing Claw is a pretty nasty attack. It's not so bad at the beginning, but if he ever gets up to rank 3, it's one of the most powerful attacks in the game, probably. So it's something to be cautious of. For that reason, I'm not going to use my defense here. I'm going to keep it, and hopefully prevent a higher damage attack later on.
I sense a little bit of hesitation in that statement now. Is the game telling you a little bit? Or?
Whenever you take damage, I say that and then immediately got hit, and I'm like, well, maybe that wasn't such a great. Yeah, I just again, just because we were kind of rolled over, it changed. It's funny because our last match, I kept saying we were pretty equal. And I have to go back and watch it, because at some point I looked down and I'm like, we're not equal anymore. I don't know when that point turned, but suddenly, we went from being 35 to like 30 to 17. And I'm like, when did that happen? And that's one of those things where those small decisions kind of pile up, and before you realize it,
within a couple of turns,
kind of you could get out of hand. So, you never like to take any damage, but you really don't want to keep missing either. So, and again, here we are, 46-35. So
you're struggling to get the cards to develop your attacks at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing is I have two unlimited powers here. I do have a silence. Just by when you're looking for attack cards, the best thing you can do is keep aging, because you do regain cards from the bottom of your discard pile. In this case, the first one would be there'd be another silence. So I would pull a second silence out, and that's good. That's good for developing later. So in the meantime, I have to discard 2 cards. I will discard, because I know I have another silence coming. I'm going to go ahead and discard these. These are 4 tactics cards. I won't be able to use them for a while. Cards in your hand are not helping you. you can't. So better to cycle them back in and hopefully prevent that string of ones later. Good. So we outlasted his Gaia's Breath too, which will make our attacks better because now it's a 2-to-1 advantage instead of 2-to-2. All right. I am going to play the defend in this case, and it's less about taking damage and more about protecting these cards from being buried. I don't want to. If I get hit with 3, it's going to be harder to get back to these cards, and I want that 6 to cycle back in. So I'm going to go ahead and play this and hope that it helps alleviate this. Not when you draw 6s. Everyone has a what is it? Mike Tyson said everyone has a plan until you get punched in the mouth.
Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. 100%.
Yeah, punch in the fist. Yeah, there you go.
I can personally attest to that. I had my first sparring session in a long time a few weeks back, and trust me, I thought I knew anything about boxing. Went out the window the second I took that straight to the jaw.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, I did boxing back when I was a kid for a little bit. And then realized my nose likes to bleed a lot, and I'm really bad at defending. So
Preach.
Which is a great combination to have when you're a boxer.
My favorite term when I'm watching boxing is keep your guard up, son. Come on now, put your guard up. What do I do the first 5 seconds of a fight? You start dangling your hands down by your midsection because you do your little hop and stuff, and the second you do that, jab straight to the face. But in this situation, it seems like, but then again, you've still got a couple of cards that your Gaia's Wisdom, number 1, and you've also got a long-term plan. Whereas in the last game, I think you had a plan, but the cards just weren't going your way in order to utilize it.
Yeah, it wasn't. I don't know so much it was our cards. It was just our opponent was just getting everything he needed, like when he needed it, and we just couldn't keep up with that development curve that he was able to sustain throughout the whole match. From all of his attacks were 2s. He was pulling all the counters to our strategies. So, in this sense, I went ahead and played Gaia's Wisdom because, again, I'm seeing the essence disparity, and I just want to make sure that I start actually hitting. And now with a 3-to-1 advantage, hopefully that will happen a little bit more often. I'm also going to play Aura Darts. It'll utilize one of my actions, but it potentially will do 4 damage to him because my spirit is 2, and it does double my spirit. So hopefully it'll do 2 things. At worst, it will cycle a 6 back into my deck, and at best, it will cycle a 6 back into my deck and also do 4 damage. So we're gonna try it. Hey. And it worked. So perfect. So now we have this 6. We'll get cycled back in. He just took 4 damage. He's going to hopefully take another 3 on top of that, and we'll be back in business. Nope, we'll not be back in business. Oh boy. Well, if your dragon keeps missing, it can thwart all your plans. But
well, but then again, you've demonstrated the key element of any strategy game is always play cards with a plan A, B, and C, which is to say, listen, I hope this effect happens, but at the very worst, this is what will be the outcome, and I'm happy with that as the outcome, because at least then you still have some bearing or control over the situation. Whereas I see some strategy game players who just play for the effect, and you go, you can do that, and when the rub of the green is going your way, that's fine. But like you've experienced in the first game, the tide of the game can turn so quickly on you. You've always got to be thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead.
Absolutely. And this is one of those cases where we drew a burst card last turn, and I knew burst cards are great to use defensively because he's a melee attacker, which means he can only use these attacks in close range. Assuming he doesn't have another burst card, I probably just jinxed it. By using this burst, okay, yes, perfect. So we bursted into distant range, meaning he can't attack now, which is great because he just trained his attack. So he has this potentially damaging attack which he just can't reach us. We're hovering far away from him. So we just basically saved ourselves 5 essence potentially, if he had hit. So that was that one card potentially saved us 5 damage worth of pain. So we're gonna stick in the distance range, and let's see. I don't want to lose any of these cards, so I'm just going to rest for my second action. And we'll just keep trying to not walk into 6s and 5s on his. He's pulling a lot of high battle value cards. And that's probably happening because he hasn't trained a whole lot. You'll see his board has been a lot. Well, I mean, we both have 2 attacks out, but I feel like we've played a lot more cards, whether it be aura darts, events, or each. I guess it's just that's funny. I guess that's just my perception that we were playing more cards than him. There, I was just about to say we really need to start finding another lightning strike, and there it is. So
there
perfect.
We go.
All right, so we've kind of weathered the storm. Now we have our developed attack. What do I do here?
Interesting. Do we stifle?
Yeah, I mean, I could either hoard and potentially lose a 5, which is, or I could use it on him. I think I am going to just use it. I told you I like maximizing the value, but if I can just slow him down a little bit,
Indeed.
especially since we just develop, I think that's best. I could go for the rank 2 with the 3 advantage, or I can go up to a 4 versus 1 advantage at a 1 to 3 attack. I'm going to go ahead. I think 3 to 1 should be enough in most circumstances. Okay.
There we go.
You can get a little bit gun shy just because it's like I've been doing. I just think I've missed my last 3 attack attempts. But the reality is a 3 to 1 advantage is huge. So when you're in that spot, you should really generally be pressing the advantage while you have it. All right.
I definitely feel a shift now. I definitely feel like the game is starting to progress more in your favor, albeit only just. So still got to wait for a couple more turns to see if your advantage remains or if it's a sort of a fleeting return to form, so to speak.
Return to form? What are you saying? That's my norm? My norm is a horrible loss, is what you're saying?
Well, I look at your record. You've got, did you say 30 wins to X amount of losses?
30 wins.
So you've got a fair amount of experience and wins under your belt. Me, I've got 5 to none. I'm in no position to dictate strategy here.
Well, the good thing is we are back in business, essence-wise. We're pretty much a match. I think that bursting last turn, which we just drew another one, stifling him with the feast, training our own attack. We've had a couple of good things development-wise go our way. And we can use his burst again next turn to, again, avoid his attack, which is great. I'm going to go ahead and do this. And now we can start training these silences, which is even more powerful. Silence, you see, you look at this card and go, why are both of these 3/7? Why rank 2 sucks? Why use it? Some cards are built like this to basically promote the aim strike choice. So even though it's a 3/7, it's a 3/7 with aim strike. It's a +1 attack attribute advantage. So it's kind of saying, hey, use it, and then use it aim strike to get a cheaper, more damage efficient, essence efficient rather, attack. But that's for next turn. Right now we will keep missing. I got a little cocky there. We had that one hit. I was excited.
I will say this, that the game does have a habit of keeping you humble. Every time you think you're about to get a bit of the like I've hit a couple of times and think, right, okay, now I can start gaining some traction. Yep, better believe that third turn it's a miss. So yeah. You can't afford to count your chickens until you're absolutely certain.
So here's another strategic bottleneck. We have to make a choice here. We could either use the burst card like I mentioned before and just get out of range, and assuming he doesn't have another burst card to counter ours, he won't be able to attack. Or because we just leveled and now we have that 3 tactics there, we can now use probably the best counter in the game, which is redirect. And basically what this does is if he hits us, we just redirect all that damage right back to him. So we can use the opponent's aggression against him. So it's a risk because it's not really a risk because you lose the card, but if he misses, he misses, and if he hits, then he takes the damage. So there's not really a huge gamble in the sense that the only loss is the loss of the card itself. And that's, I mentioned cards that were kind of on my radar. Probably 2 of them, Redirect and Ember Breath, which I mentioned last game, are probably the 2 of them kind of tracking as potentially that might need nerfs. Only because this can really swing a game. Like for now, he just hit himself basically.
Nice.
And yeah, so that's and the AI just seems to love using. Whenever I play against the Silver Chandler, I just walk into those redirects all the time. I'm like, oh, why is he staying in range? Oh, it's because he's just going to make me punch myself over and over again. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and use these silences. And again, this is purely because I could do 5 damage, or I could do 7 damage, and get a +1 attack advantage. So that's what we're going to do. And you can see, even though he drew that 5, we just have such a 4-to-1 attack advantage. We got 7-to-6, so this is big. This in combination with Gaia's Wisdom is Alright, now we'll be using that burst card to get the heck out of dodge. And very well. His counter to that was developing a ranged attack, so and his ranged attack is similar to ours in that it's a 3-7. It's actually pretty much exactly the same. So, and again, he's just going to be using that aimed attack for his 4-to-1 advantage. So we basically have equivalent. I say equivalent. It was only equivalent while we had that event in place. Now he's got the advantage with this. This card really sucks. For us, not for him. All right, I gotta be careful. We are in the lead, but this could swing just on a few turns here. So I'm just gonna play it a little bit safe and just turtle up. All right, good. That was big. Okay. This is a much closer game. Lot more. Last game I felt kind of helpless. But this one I'm feeling it's tense. It's getting a little tense.
You're able to land your attacks as opposed to the last game where it literally felt like you were flailing to a certain degree against an opponent that was just picking you apart step by step. It was.
Yeah. It was painful to watch, wasn't it?
Well, this game is an improvement, and you're only as good as your last game, so there we go.
There you go. There you go. All right. Well, we're just gonna keep. Oh man. Every loss just feels so critical at this point. I mean, it's really just a massive swing. And if you, oh yeah, I do. All right. So now I mentioned Crushing Claw. If he gets it up to 3,
That's when it becomes really devastating.
Nasty. Well, yeah, because what happens is now this bonus effect comes into play, where he's not only doing 7 damage, he's doing 7 damage plus whatever he happens to draw, whatever he happens to draw. So, yeah. Again, 6s. Ugh. So basically, that was a 9-card swing right there. 9 cards. All right, I'm gonna have to stay close. I don't want to spend essence moving. I'm gonna use this even. It's not so much stifling him, but it's just about getting high battle value cards back in my deck to cycle back in. If I could, I'll go ahead and I'll just so I can rest and make sure that gets back in my deck, so I'll do that. And then I'll just okay. Well, this is another one where this is good. All right, so let's look at that. He just played a counter that called Night Terrors. This is another one that uses your opponent's aggression against them. So by us hitting, we actually triggered this. He's going to end up drawing 2 cards, even from his discard pile, and he'll have a +1 to his attack next turn. So, but the good thing is he's down to practically nothing now. So his attacks are, I mean, it's still a 3 essence attack, but he only has 3 essence. So he's going to have to rest probably, or aim strike just to attack. Yeah, so he's just choosing to not use any actions to rest. This is... Oh my god.
Oh dear.
Well, that was a lot closer. You see this dragon, I have 12 and 4, so it's funny, I've barely lost this one. Today, it's just not in the cards.
Well, to be honest, look, here's what I take away from this, is that even someone who is completely adept at the game can see things in real time in terms of their practical effects. This game presents a challenge, which means that you've always got to be upping your game. I felt like I got better while I was playing the game, in terms of from game to game to game to game, move to move to move to move. The understanding grows the appreciation for even the disparity between how you played your first game to the second one. I felt it where you were like, right, I feel like I want to do this, but that's only because of the last game. Right, I need to refocus, I need to apply the strategy that works best for this scenario. It was fascinating to watch that play out, man.
Yeah, I mean, and this one I felt it was a lot closer. It really came down to a couple swings. I had a real bad string of luck with, he was just drawing 6s and 5s to when we were resolving battle, both when he was hitting and when I was trying to hit. And so there was a little bit of bad luck involved, but again, it was pretty close even with that bad luck. It came right down to the end. I think if we had one more turn, we probably could have won it, because it was that close. He was down to 3 cards in his deck.
Indeed.
If he had missed, I think we probably could have won on the next turn. So one of the things I say that now after losing 2, but one of the things I find in a lot of single player games, and again, DragonClash is single player, is that the AI is usually not a match to a real player. And that's one of the things that I went into this game very driven to make the experience as competitive as possible, and I think I've done that. I think the AI will generally prove to be, even when the games are close, like this one is, will prove to be a natural challenge, just because of the way the game is designed, the natural swings of the game, but also I think I've struck that balance of where the AI doesn't cheat, but it also doesn't let you off the hook. So I think this kind of showcases where you can play the game and pretty much have a different experience every time, and you'll be challenged every time. And it is hard, but when you do win, it feels satisfying because you feel like you earned it.
The mark of a great
especially
game.
with those boss fights.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, listen, there's nothing in a game that's easy to win, and there's nothing in a game that never rewards you for winning, and only ever punishes you. And even though, again, 2 losses, but you could certainly see the difference in the gameplay. You could certainly see the difference in the way that both games developed from a purely frantic standpoint. In the first game, it was like, oh wait, the tide has seriously turned, we need to do something now, to you were going blow for blow in the second game. It just so happened that there was a little bad run. Again, as you kind of adequately put it, the momentum of his dragon built up to the point where it's like, now he really does have the advantage. Now it is a case of the advantage hasn't been pressed. We need to turtle up a little bit. so long as you can recognise that and you can play to what the game is telling you to play to, rather than what I do, which is stubbornly sort of try to press on, like, no, we can still keep going this way, and then you lose. It's like, well, no, you need to learn the ebb and flow of the game a little bit, and it will reward you accordingly.
Yeah. And especially in that last game, too, I think the momentum really shifted once he learned that. I mentioned at the very beginning we were kind of contrasting styles. He learned that ranged attack that also uses his melee attribute. And once he did that, he kind of neutralized our major advantage, which is attacking from range. So as soon as he could attack us close and far away, that was a pretty strong momentum shift. Just in terms of just in terms of negating our advantage, but also having that stronger attack. The choice of A or B, and they're both good choices. So that's just how it goes sometimes.
It's how it
was
goes.
Close. It was close.
It was close. But listen, I can't speak for everybody, and I am peculiar. I enjoyed watching those games thoroughly. It was incredible, just because I'm still learning how to play the game adequately, and it was fascinating watching. Just like, okay, so where are you looking? Where are you? How are you developing your strategy in real time? How are you setting your stall out from the beginning? How are you reacting to his actions? How are you coping with? Oh no, he's not getting that. Oh damn it! Like, that was fascinating. I thought it was great.
Yeah. Good. I'm glad it was entertaining to watch.
I thought it was entertaining as hell. I mean, again, I'm learning from it, if nothing else, but also watching the. If he gets a feast card, we're in trouble. Okay, he got a feast card.
Right.
Okay. That's good. But then you still got to react to it. You still got to deal with it. So the next turn, it's like, right, what do we have? How can we counter him? How can we improve our stance? I thought that was brilliant, and it's great to see that. I sometimes struggle to comprehend the subtle nuances of a game like this, because there is a lot that goes into, again, the strategies that aren't apparent to a player that picks up and plays. Like you were saying, like, with this dragon, it's like you need to press the advantage with this particular dragon against this dragon, and you go, right, okay, so now I've got to see how you press the advantage. I thought it was great. I thought it was. It's a shame we couldn't. But I'll just edit around the losses. It's fine. I'll put a big win. We'll put some fireworks in. No one will know. It'll be absolutely fine. But even with the losses, especially in the second game, you felt the tension ramp up as the end game was starting to play out, and you genuinely felt, okay, we're getting to the conclusion here, and it was great. And the card, and plus, again, I'm a sucker for development. I mean, there's nothing better than in a strategy game when you start to beef up the characters. You were leveling up, the attacks were leveling up, the hits were starting to come thick and fast. It was brilliant.
Awesome. Yeah, I wish we could have walked away with a win, especially since you said you've been struggling as well. Wanted to show that the AI can be smashed as well, but. Sometimes it just happens. As I said, the game is tough, and well,
I'll tell you what we need to do. I think what we need to do is we need to give ourselves an excuse to maybe have one more crack. Except for this time, it'll be yours truly at the reins, with Mark coaching me, Rocky style, against the computer. We are aiming for this elusive win, and I'm gonna get it for Mark. I'm gonna get it for me. I'm going to get it for everybody that plays DragonClash and goes, I want to see them get that win. I feel like I'm going to take something away from this video now. I'm going to go away. I'm going to train. I'm going to do some more push-ups while doing some cards. It's going to be, and we're going to arrange another one, and it's going to be a goddamn bloodbath. We're going to slay them. It's going to be amazing. Okay, maybe not a bloodbath. Maybe a concerted effort to win, but still. Gonna be hellish.
Excellent.
Well, that
sounds perfect to me, man.
Well, that was DragonClash. I hope everyone enjoyed. Listen, I can't say everyone will have enjoyed it. I enjoyed the hell out of watching Mark play. I hope everyone else did, and I've picked up a few points. If you haven't already, despite my podcast with Mark telling you, I think on 6 separate occasions to go buy the game. Which means that if either you have the game and you played it and you're sitting at the screen screaming at what we did wrong in this game to win, in which case, bravo. Leave your suggestions in the comment section below. If you haven't bought the game, I'm extremely disappointed in you. Like, seriously disappointed in you, and you need to go out and buy it immediately.
Yes, we won't fault you too much as long as you buy it right now.
I will.
Right now.
You need to go buy it right now, though. But that was great. I appreciate you taking the time as always, and let's make an excuse to do another one. Let me go away, get some reps. You go away, come back, coach me through, and we will win. We will win a game against the computer on this game. How does that sound?
Yes, this is the goal. It sounds perfect to me, man.
Right. Well,
I appreciate it.
I've been Lorne Risley. I've been the host of the show. Plugs. I feel plugs time. This is as good a time as any. You just provided me with about an hour and a half of entertainment, so it's only fair I give you an opportunity. Plugs, my friend. What have you got for us?
So yeah, DragonClash is currently on Steam. You can get to it, search for it on the Steam store, or you can just go to DragonClash.com and hit the link right there, and it'll bring you to where you can actually try a free demo. You can actually play the Red Breather yourself in all of its glory. And if you prove to be better at it than I am, you'll even be able to fight one of the bosses in the game, all for free. And then when you decide to upgrade, you'll have more content, which means more bosses and more dragons to play as. So give it a try.
There you go. And
see if you do better than the developer.
And if they want to reach you on the socials, where can they find you on social media?
Yeah, again, the links are all on DragonClash.com, but basically I'm at DragonClash Game on both Facebook and Twitter. So
there you have it. DragonClash, folks. Go out and buy the damn thing and beat it, and then tell me how to, so I can make Mark proud.
You do. You make me proud every day.
Oh, that's so good.